Kiss. Keep it simple, stupid.
I promise you, this is not a political podcast.
Jump from the deep into the pool, set up the mood. Paranoid radio, set up the mood. Paranoid radio, set up the mood. Paranoid radio, set up the mood. 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 Set up the mood.
Testicles 1, 2, testicles. Welcome back to Paranoid Radio Podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Trebles Garcia. And I want to thank the Lord for allowing me to be here today. And I want to thank every single one of you for allowing me to enter your space. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I have an amazing episode lined up for all of you guys. And like I was telling my boy Shayn here, that he is starting up again the gears on Paranoid Radio Podcast, lubricating, giving me a quick little tune-up, sharing energies, and sharing platforms. Before anything, I want to remind you that the most important thing that you could do for the show is word of mouth. And do not forget to check us out at paranoidradio.com. Check out Flavors of the Forest today. Bigfoot himself freaking grew these garlic pills and garlic dust out of his backyard. And then he shares it with the world, puts it in a little bottle, and sells it to you. And now you can save 15% off on the next purchase at checkout using Paranoid. And that link is in paranoidradio.com. Check out some of the videos. And Rumble is burning up. We're dropping 5 episodes a day from the vault on Rumble. Make sure you check us out again. Now, enough of the promotion. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, jumping in from the deep end of the pool and setting the mood, please allow me to introduce the host. Wait, let me get my notes out. I don't want to be disrespectful. Oh, crap. That's how you know I suck at this stuff, dude. Let's see. Give me a 3, 2, 1. And he is the host of not one, but 2 amazing podcast shows, Inquiries of Reality and Bizarre Encounters. Please give a warm welcome to Shayn Jones. What's up, big dog?
Absolute pleasure to be here today, man. After having you come on my side, it got to flip on to coming onto your side, man. But it's always weird to be on this side of the microphone, I got to admit.
It is. It is. You know what? You were one of those few podcasters that really vibed with me, and we were just, free flowing conversation. And I really enjoyed that episode, bro, because you got things out of me that I never even said on this show. So it's really important, guys. Before anything, where can people find you?
First and foremost, you guys can find me on any podcast platform, Spotify, iTunes, Apple, anything like that. Should be across just about everything. I also drop wavelength versions of the episodes on YouTube. So if you're somebody that likes watching on YouTube, you guys can find it there. Under that one, though, it's going to be under Open Minds Media. Try to put everything in the YouTube page all in one place to make it easier for myself. But you guys are looking up the regular shows on regular feeds anywhere. Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones and Bizarre Encounters with Shane and Oren. Have to specify with that second one because, we've been running that show for probably about 2 going on 3 years now. And somebody about 6 months ago decided to start up something called Bizarre Encounters Podcast. So now it kind of messes up the feed, and they're like 3 episodes in and we're like 100 and some odd episodes in. And I'm just like, man, it totally ruined the feed. So I just had to add the with Shane and Oren to try to differentiate it a bit. Because if you look up Bizarre Encounters Podcast, it ends up popping up with the other person now for some reason, or it's like split. It's like half and half on the Google feed.
It's there's a little loophole to that. If you let's say if you open a .com, like you open up a domain with it, it actually helps when people search for it. It'll be one of the first ones to come up. Like if you use GoDaddy or Wix or whatever, it's easy. I mean, but you don't have to create a website. Just create the domain, and people, when they search it up, it'll pop up. That's what I did too, because there was like a Paranoia Radio in Spanish in South America, and there was another one. It was called Paranoid Radio, and I was like, dude, I gotta misspell mine, and then that's why I don't have a D behind Paranoid. So yeah, dude, it's a mess. I know what you're talking about, bro. It's crazy stuff, man.
This is the first time I've honestly ran into that, because Inquiries of Our Reality, it's like nobody else has come up with anything close to that. So it's like the first 5 pages on Google, all you're going to find is stuff with me, my episodes, all that shit. Bizarre Encounters was like that for a while. And like I said, it was like 6 months ago. I only found these guys on accident because I went to go on my link tree and I hit the thing that says check out episodes on Spotify, and it popped up some other podcasts. And I had to manually put in the feed and everything because it was pulling off of my link. And then, I look it up. These guys are 3 episodes in. And I'm just like, come on, guys. You couldn't have looked up the name of the show and picked something at least a little bit different.
Yeah. And you know what's funny, dude? Not to be a party pooper, but a lot of the people, there's a lot of podcasters there. Congratulations on 277 episodes, by the way. You just dropped an episode with Roque, Deborah Roque, right? That's her name?
Yep.
And I did an episode with her too, bro. Oh man, she's a fountain of information. She could really dump it out, and I'm happy that you guys are collaborating. She has great content also. Shout outs to her. But you have 277 episodes, and a lot of people don't even make it past 10 or 20, and then they're using the name, and it's kind of like fucking it up because when people search for it, they get discouraged. They think that's your show, and like, oh, he only posts once a month, and it's a train wreck, bro. It could be a really demoralizing situation.
And it's funny, I try to message them too, and they won't respond or nothing like that. But that's on a whole other note. Going to talk about Deborah though. Deborah's like honestly one of the best. I had her on the show back in maybe like episode 100 and something, and I had her on again recently. And anybody that's semi familiar with her knows that she kind of came into some like interesting like mediumship type abilities. So it's pretty cool, man.
Oh,
Second
snap.
half of the show, she ended up like channeling on the show, and that's the first time I've ever been able to do that in the show. So I want to give her a special shout out for being willing to do that kind of stuff, and also a special shout out because in between the first episode we did together and the second episode we did together, she ended up contacting me and actually writing an article about me in Paranormality magazine. So that was really, really cool because that was the first time I ever got to get published in a magazine. So she holds a special place in my heart. She's the best.
Yo, kudos to that, dude. Congratulations, bro. I love it, dude. When you win, dude, when people around me win like that, bro, and they collaborate with each other, that's amazing, dog. Yo, she had a medium session. She went into it
Oh yeah, the
in
second
your episode.
at least the last quarter of the episode, last third of the episode, yeah, I started getting into these like really intricate questions, and she starts actually like channeling to like answer the questions. It was super fascinating.
Oh man, I can't wait. Oh, dude, I want to go check that out right now. Well, let me put pause on this show real quick. Good stuff, man. Thank you for sharing that, bro. Everybody, make sure you check them out. Inquiries are our reality. They're going to be on the drop down menu. And make sure that you, Shane, send me the description for both of your shows. We're going to put it on the description on this episode also, bro, featuring the other show too.
Little extra side note too, I also do a YouTube show. That one's only 19 episodes in, but it's called Bizarre Inquiries, and it's basically just a short form podcast type live show where we'll take in listener questions, articles, clips, whatever, and we basically let our minds wander and discuss them for like 20 minutes to like a half hour or so also kind of like a mini YouTube show also that's in the mix over there too, and a lot of other stuff that's in the process. Like we're going to start working on a not Oren, my one co-host, but somebody that I'm actually going to be working on a Dogman documentary with in spring. His name's Riley from Midwest Mythos. We're actually going to start doing a once a month live show where with all the encounter reports I take in, we're going to start playing them on the show, discussing them on the show, and trying to be kind of like interactive. Like I know a couple people have kind of done it, but like the campfire style where people can pop in, tell their stories. We can share some stories, share our ideas on it. So always something in the works, man.
That's hot. That's hot, bro. I'm gonna get you in contact with somebody I think that you guys could do. He's in New York. He has a lot of stories. He has his own podcast, paranormal podcast show too. I'm gonna get you guys in link. He's a good friend of mine. I'm sure that you guys are gonna get to hit it off. He has good content too, bro. Undiscovered guy, but a lot of us are undiscovered. And talking about undiscovered, and now pivoting the conversation into what I really brought you here for. I want to showcase what you're about. And I'm not sure if you're a full-on conspiracy theorist. So the question is, what was your first red pill, bro? What was your first memorable red pill moment that you'd like? A lot of people say the most common things, right? Flat Earth and all this other stuff. But I like to break the ice with this question. What's up, bro? What made you really tick?
It's a really, really hard question to answer because it's like I had my own kind of weird experiences and stuff growing up as far as like paranormal type stuff. And honestly, that's kind of, I feel like the doorway to start really like questioning your reality. But like, I'd say the first like big conspiracy that I really started diving into just because I was in first grade back in 2001, of course, was like 9/11. That was like one of the big ones I feel for a lot of millennials. And it wasn't until I was like end of middle school, beginning of high school, when I actually started like really kind of digging into it and questioning a lot of like the narrative on that kind of stuff. And again, growing up and having your own like weird paranormal experiences and your own kind of weirdness and stuff with your parents, it's kind of like a thing that you start questioning everything around you. So once you start questioning everything around you, as everybody knows, it's like it's a snowball. It's like once you question one thing, you hop on the next thing, onto the next thing, onto the next thing, and you start realizing that everywhere around you is full of lies. And then you start feeling like the crazy one because it's like you don't know who to talk about this kind of stuff with. But, then you start getting into like the podcasting realm and everything. And then you realize that not only are there people that feel the same way as you, but they'll specifically spend hours and hours and hours specifically researching that one thing. And once they start actually pulling apart all these little details, it makes more sense that it's a lie rather than it's like a narrative. And I mean, of course, there's the double side of that kind of stuff with it being, you know, an intentional psyop, maybe something never happened in the first place or an intentional attack. But yeah, the first big one that I feel like I really started diving into was 9/11. And then it was just kind of an avalanche from there. But then once, you know, the big whole thing came around with like a lot of people, not that that necessarily like woke me up or anything like that, but that was when I started getting to the point where it was like I was doing so much research into this type of stuff that I felt like I needed to kind of get my voice, my opinions out, and also be able to have conversations with people that do this research. Because a lot of the shows I was listening to, they weren't asking the type of questions that I would have asked. So I figured I kind of bring my vibe, my feel into everything. And again, from there, it's just kind of been continuous thing that, you know, you just got to keep growing and growing and growing, questioning everything. And honestly, it's a quest for knowledge and curiosity for me more so than anything. And that's why I like, you know, having a variety of different people that end up coming on like my main show and everything and coming and talking to me. It's not just, you know, conspiracies. It's not just UFOs, Bigfoot, spirituality. It's a mix of everything. Because once you start really digging into it, you realize that all of this stuff is a lot more connected than not connected. So it's like you just one thing into the other, man. You fall down the rabbit hole.
It is all connected. You know that phrase from Transformers when they say more than meets the eye, you know, that's not a freaking lie, bro. They were telling us what the freak is happening. I think life is a lot more interesting. And I like to say this on the show a lot. I think almost as far as I go right now, most of the conspiracy theories that I dwell into, almost every single one of them comes back to spirituality, which means it comes back to different realms, dimensions, lighthood, ghost appearances, like I mentioned on your show when we spoke about my Alf situation. And, you know, believe it or not, we are not the only ones who have gone through stuff like that. Right now, you just mentioned a couple of things that kind of triggered the hair by the back of my hairs, like my spidey senses. You said that you've had experiences. You're one of those people that is not only a researcher, but an experiencer, according to the notes you gave me. Talk to me, bro. What was one of the deepest experiences you've had? Aside from becoming a conspiracy theorist, and you mentioned also your family in there, please feel free, share.
I'm trying to think about where to exactly start with it because it's kind of a mixture of a bunch of different things. But I have like my big encounter that I usually end up talking about on shows because it was honestly what kind of pushed me into getting into more so of like the cryptid research, on top of having my own experiences as a kid that were more on the paranormal side. But it was stuff that I just had to try to figure out for myself. And it continued on into leading into everything. And I didn't even end up talking about that stuff when I first started my show. And then as I started kind of getting momentum, I started talking about a little bit more of my experiences and why I started getting everything I do. But I guess kind of quick running over it as fast as I can without getting too crazy with every single detail and everything.
Please give me the details. That's the juicy part.
I'll give you the details of the really, really good ones. And I'll kind of brush through over the not as interesting stuff. But when I was a kid, I would astral travel without realizing exactly what was happening. And this started before, honestly, I could even like remember. I can't really remember a time where I wasn't actually having these experiences, if it tells anybody like how young I was when this was happening. But typically what would happen would be that I would fall asleep, I would wake up, and when I woke up, I would like see myself sleeping. I wouldn't like necessarily astral travel to like other dimensions or sleep realms or anything like that, but I would be like in the physical world, but as like an astral form of myself. And as a kid, it was like, you know, curiosity. You kind of just walk around, check stuff out. And it kind of had this like ambiance that everything felt like, I don't know, like almost like a cartoon. Like everything was like cheerful. Everything was happy. Like I almost felt like there was like things watching me that were like, hee, like kind of looking around the corner, but it didn't have this like dark feel or anything like that to it. But then as I started getting older, some of this stuff started getting weird. And I don't know if it was necessarily because of, you know, as a teenager, as you start getting older, you start having different emotions that start flying. And I feel like emotions, energy, of course, has like a big impact on what you're experiencing as far as the paranormal goes. That's why, you know, houses that have a lot of turmoil will end up having issues with poltergeists. Like it has to do with like the emotional energy as much as it has to do with there being something that maybe in the area in the house or something with an interest in you. But as I started getting older, the experiences started getting a little bit different where throughout all of this, I would get sleep paralysis. So that would always be like my thing where I would know that I was having one of these experiences versus, you know, just regular sleeping and maybe just, you know, imagining something because I'd always come back and I'd always get sleep paralysis. But as I started getting older, it almost kind of seemed like it was more of like a test where I remember these couple different experiences where I ended up going through these like obstacle courses that were like above water, and they were like these big wooden obstacle courses. And one of them I specifically remember, I was climbing through all of it, and there was these like rushing rapids underneath it, and I somehow fell into the water, and I was getting rushed around like underneath the obstacle course, and I ended up hitting this rock. And the second I hit the rock, I like woke up, but then I had a sleep paralysis experience where like I couldn't move, couldn't do anything. And as I started getting older, it seemed like there was like darker things, like they were like masquerading themselves as something happier when I was younger, and maybe they were something a bit different. But I would start seeing these like shadow people, and there was always this specific one, and I haven't heard anybody else who's had an experience like this. And I'm definitely curious if there's anybody else out there who's had one, but everybody talks about the red-eyed shadow people, like Hat Man, all that kind of stuff. But I would see this like super tall, lanky, green-eyed shadow person, and it seemed like it was the one that kind of towered over the others, and they would kind of just sit around the outside and just like watch me when I was having these like sleep paralysis experiences. And as I started getting older again, there was like different weird aspects of these experiences where there was one day that I fell asleep on the floor in the back room of the house, and I woke up, and it was the middle of the day, of course. Well, woke up in the astral realm, and I looked down at my arms, and my arms were completely black. Like, or like as far as I could see in my skin, everything was like completely black. So then I started kind of questioning like what these shadow people I was seeing actually were. Like, are they other people that were having these experiences? And maybe that's like the form that you see it as this like 2-dimensional thing when it's actually something 3-dimensional if you're in the astral like realm yourself. Because at least from my experiences, when I was seeing these shadow people, it was always when I was in the sleep paralysis state. It wasn't necessarily when I was in the astral realm state. So I never got to like see them on that other side to see if they were 3-dimensional when I was in that state. But yeah, I had a lot of like really, really weird experiences like that growing up. And that ended up kind of going in spurts where like it would happen extremely frequently, and then it would stop for a little while, and then it would happen really, really frequently, and then it would stop for a while. And when I started getting to be like 19, early 20s, it started kind of tapering out a little bit. And around that time, is when I started getting into like urban exploring. And for anybody that's not familiar with what urban exploring is, it's basically when you find these like old abandoned buildings, usually like hospitals, whatever you happen to have in your city or whatever, but you basically just explore it. I mean, there's a lot of people, of course, that'll like vandalize and stuff when they do this, but that was never really our intention with it. We would go into these places and we were just astonished by like the beauty of like destruction. Like my girlfriend's a photographer, so she'd love taking pictures and stuff. And I was into the paranormal stuff, but at this point I wasn't like a researcher or investigator by any means. So I didn't really like know what the rules of this type of stuff was at the time. So me just being like a teenager, 19, 20 maybe, I ended up finding this little tiki head, and it looked like it was something that may have been made by one of the patients, because it was made out of styrofoam, and it looked like somebody kind of crudely cut it, maybe with like a butter knife or something, then painted it. So, it was the place that we used to go to all the time was called Northville Psychiatric Hospital. So it was a place that had a tumultuous history, of course, with like mentally ill patients. And assumably, arts and crafts, you're not going to give them a piece of wood to whittle. So you give them a piece of foam and something like plastic, and, they're not going to hurt anybody or hurt themselves or anything. But I ended up finding this thing there. Thought it was fascinating. Took home this no smoking sign that I had because I thought it was funny for whatever reason. And later on that night, when we're at home, we end up bringing all of our stuff upstairs when we get home. And then we end up coming back downstairs to go and get a snack. And the way the front room was set up, there was like the front room and then the kitchen behind it, but it had 2 doorways. So it was like almost like a continuous circle all the way around. And so I'm at the bottom of the stairs that's over by the front door. And my girlfriend goes to go and get something in the kitchen. She walks straight around going into the kitchen. And in the process of this, we both make like direct eye contact with this shadow being that's like sitting on the couch. And it was completely pitch black. Out. And my girlfriend just has that state where she's just like, she just kept chugging along what she was doing. She didn't stop. She didn't freeze, nothing. She like stared directly at it and just beeline straight into the kitchen. And then she comes around the other side and looks at me and goes, "You saw that, right?" And we both looked over there and it wasn't there anymore. It was gone. So that's when I was like, all right, maybe there's something weird with this stuff I took home. So later on that night, and this is where it kind of links back in with like the astral travel experiences. I'm watching TV. She's always one that goes to bed early. So I'm watching TV. She goes to sleep. And next thing I hear is this like running down the hallway, and then a boom, 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 boom. And it sounds like somebody gets pushed down the stairs. And as that happens, she like springs up out of bed and she's like, whoa. And I was like, what happened? She was like, I had a dream that I just got pushed down the stairs. I was like, that's weird.
Oh
I just heard
God.
something get pushed down the stairs.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I had to like explain to her like all these experiences and everything that I had as a kid. Cause before that, I didn't have any context to telling her any of this kind of stuff because I didn't want to sound crazy. Like we just started dating and everything like that. And you don't just start dating somebody and hit them with, oh, I've been having these weird astral travel experiences my whole life. Or I feel like somebody's been testing me. But, after that night, I ended up explaining this stuff to her. And after then, she started kind of getting into the vibe and like believing in this kind of stuff because just a side tangent, just to give a big shout out to her. She's one of those girlfriends that, usually the conspiracy guys that get into all this kind of stuff, their significant other usually doesn't believe in any of this shit. She's actually one of those people that'll sit down and listen to me, and she believes, a good majority of stuff. Like, some of the cryptid stuff's a little bit out there for her. Like Sasquatch, she definitely believes in the possibility of it. She goes on Squatch hikes and stuff like that with me. But, she's not like far off the deep end, but she's definitely like in with the conspiracies where she doesn't make me feel like I'm crazy for believing in this kind of stuff. But after that, they kind of opened the door for her a bit more as far as like the paranormal type stuff goes. So Northville Psychiatric Hospital was our absolute favorite place to go to when we were urban explorer. Like this place wasn't just the main hospital. It had like a whole campus where there was like different dorms for like male, female. There was like the gymnasium area. There was a couple different like satellite buildings that were all in this area. There was even like a old school looking building that was over there too. So we go back to this place almost every weekend, and we got to the point where this place was like completely mapped out. We knew where everything was. We knew how to get to like the chapel, like all the really, really cool places that were in this place. And we hadn't really had any other crazy paranormal experiences there. Like she'd take pictures and everything, and you catch the orbs, but these old buildings, it's kind of hard to tell. It could be an orb, could be a dust particle. I don't want to say it's one or the other because you got to be a skeptic about stuff if you actually want to get somewhere. With
a realist,
Exactly.
You got to debunk the stupid things,
Exactly. So nothing too crazy ended up happening here. Besides, there was one day that we were up on like I think like the 6th floor or something like that, and this door slammed shut, and there was no broken windows on that floor, like no air movement, anything like that. And we even ended up like opening the door and hanging out there for a while to see if it would slam shut, and it never ended up slamming shut again. And the weird part about the door was that it was painted blue and it had this like big smiley face on it. So it just kind of gave you those like weird vibes. So
creepy,
kind of building up a little bit more into our like main experience that we had at this place.
Okay, can I pause you? I gotta pause you before we get to the main part. Whoa, you had a mouthful. And that's what I love about talking to podcasters, because we can't shut up. Yo, let me tell you something. Okay, first I got like some rapid questions I gotta ask you. But dude, amazing story.
And I get into the chain of events on stuff, and I just keep going. So
like
I'll just keep going unless you stop me, man.
Check this out. We're gonna come back to the story after the smiley face story, okay, bro? But I think everything that you do, if you don't respect it and you go in with different intent, that's gonna manifest. Let me ask you a couple questions. Have you ever lucid dreamed? Can you control your dreams?
I've tried to, and this will kind of come back around because there's still kind of other parts that'll fall back into like the whole astral experience stuff. But anytime that I've ever tried to do it, it completely goes haywire on me. Like anytime I become aware of one, like I've never realized that like my biggest fear is getting blasted through space at a fast rate, but it seems to be where that always ends up going. And I've like tried different methods, and the main one that always seems to work for me that makes it so that I'm like aware when I'm inside the dream is that I'll put on like a light, like a night light, and I'll put it within like my eyesight so I can like see it with my eyelids shut, like that there's a light there. And I kind of keep it kind of related to like leaving a light on the back of the house, like the house isn't fully dark, not everybo's asleep, you still got a light on in the back. And for whatever reason, that seems to always work for me. But one of the specific experiences I had with this, I was in some cabin. It wasn't like my house, but usually when you're in those situations, like you're not aware of like the house. You're just like, oh, I'm alive. This is what's happening right now.
Yeah.
And what started making everything kind of fall into place for me was that my girlfriend's sister came out and she kissed me. And then all of a sudden, like there's a knock on the door and my girlfriend comes in and she's with her boyfriend. So it's like we're switched. So I'm like, all right, this ain't right. So I end up going into the bathroom and I start like looking at my hands. And I'm like, all right, I'm in a dream. I know I'm in a dream right now. I'm like, I'm going to control this. So next thing I know, I'm like, all right, I'm going to start trying to do something. All the walls fall down and I start getting blasted through space. And it's like every single time I've ever tried to do this, like they go haywire on me.
It breaks. Okay. It's called you hit like, it starts lagging on you. It's like when you, it's kind of like it does not render. Kind of like when you're playing Grand Theft Auto, your mind is not rendering the next, not loading the next megabytes to create the next room or stuff. It's not. You just got stuck. You woke up too fast. I think you woke your mind up to that reality. Let me give you an experience real quick. Okay, I'm a livid lucid dreamer, bro. I cannot do it on command, but when they are in, dude, I could have fun in the dream, wake up, go get my daughter a bottle, come back, go to sleep with the same notion where I was left off, and pick up right after it again. Like if I'm skateboarding, falling, or snowboarding, or doing some stupid trick with my body, I'm doing it. Sometimes, bro, the only thing is like if you have a fear. Whenever we were kids, I grew up with vampires, zombie apocalypse, world war, the Matrix movie. So all of those influences you start getting influenced with what you as a child, like the stuff that you went through as a child. So in my head, I'm like, okay, if I'm having fun and I'm already like 1 hour into this lucid dream, I wake up, go take a piss, come back, and I see that I have another 40 minutes before I go to sleep. I'm like, I'm going back to the dream. I go and knock out to the side, and I could pick up where I left off, but now it kicks into like overdrive on a movie. It starts synthesizing. It starts creating something different. I can't control it anymore. Now the events are just happening, and I'm living through another experience, like another timeline. Kind of like what you said, that you just get blasted. It goes haywire. So it's really important. I don't know what it is that we knock into that makes it into a dual, like a different reality, and we cannot control it anymore. It's not lucid dreaming anymore. It's not, you're not controlling your body. You're not enjoying it anymore. It's not spiritual, right? And the other question, I got some rapid questions for you before we jump into the second portion of your story. Does any of your family fucked around with like dark entities, or like they have been mediums, psychics, gypsies, anything like that in the matter?
Not that I know of, because my family was never necessarily into that. But on the other side of it, though, my grandma was 100% Cherokee, and I grew up with her telling me like Native American folklore stories about like Sasquatch, all this type of stuff. So like, I don't know what could potentially be in that linear line going back, knowing that she was already like 100% Cherokee. Then my dad's 50%, I'm 25. But I'm sure that there's probably something within that, because everybody that I've talked to that gets into like past life regressions, all this type of stuff, they all talk about there being something shamanistic in my life experiences. And I used to have these like I guess you could say like premonition. I'm not even necessarily premonition, but visions. Back when I used to be heavy into like doing like psychedelic, like learning about the mind, all that type of stuff. I'm not taking them as like I'm trying to get high, but like trying to explore like my own mind and like consciousness with this stuff. And I would have these like dream or visions that I would like be in this like tent, and it was like the Viking era, and I'd be like handing these like mushrooms and stuff like that to people. And then it was weird because later on, when I ended up doing a past life regression, I ended up being a Viking in the past, and I basically spent my entire life trying to basically figure out how to bring my daughter back, because my daughter had disappeared or died at some point, and I was basically getting into like occult understanding, trying to bring her back, and in turn neglecting my family, which I think plays into my line now, that I try to make sure I'm like a present father for everybody. But yeah, kind of weird connections that it was like, I don't know, maybe some people like to believe you already kind of have that concept in your mind. But on the other side, if you've ever done like a past life regression, like you're not consciously like yourself. Like it's weird. It's hard to explain unless you've actually like done it yourself. Like everybody says I can't be hypnotized, and it doesn't feel necessarily like you're hypnotized, but you're in a different wavelength, in a different state, and it feels like you're recalling things rather than like your brain's making them up. But I guess it's all about perspective. It's hard to understand unless you're actually like in that situation doing it and you're open to the possibilities of it.
I'm not very religious, but I do know that, and the more I open the Bible, the more I think it's the oldest and most crazy conspiracy book of all time. But it says, you shall not practice magic. God wouldn't tell you not to practice magic if magic didn't exist. He wouldn't tell you not to worship other gods if other gods didn't exist. So all of these things, he's allowed for them to roam the world, the earth, and this realm, if anything. So I'm thinking, okay, I'm allowed this medicine man, people, the only tangible thing that we know that exists is our physical matter, our three dimensions, right? Again, matter, what is it? Matter, space, and time, right? So you're like, okay, this is where I live in, and this is what only exists in my realm. So people tend to forget that there is a plasma spiritual lighthood realm also, and we tend to disrespect it a lot. And when a lot of us, for example, people that believe in the shadow realm and in cryptozoology and whatever, all the stuff that we talk about, paranormal activity, we start like almost borderline disrespected or disregarding how important it is to keep respecting it. What you said right now about having the transregression and having saying that you in a past life in a life regression you were once a Viking, a caregiving person looking for your daughter, and today you're like flipping and living that same life, kind of like the same pattern of that life. This is not scientifically proven, but it is scientifically proven that your DNA stores memory and stores information from all your past generations. So in your bloodline right now, you have the stories of every single person before you, warriors, Vikings, person that died, even women, etc. Right? And you probably fell back into that timeline, into that same spirit, into that same pattern of behaving patterns, the way of thoughts, the thought processing, the spectrum you walk, your habits, everything, the way you conversate with people, all of those things come from the people before you. So I really do believe that, for example, you said you were part Viking back then, and that's what your life regression was. Even if you are not directly descended to a huge Viking king, there was something that happened, something traumatic that happened to that in that specific timeline that now it came back and is arising again in your personal timeline right now. It's called trauma through DNA, bro. Trauma through memories, trauma through your, you know what I'm saying? Through the information inside your blood cells. So I believe it 100%. It's amazing,
that's where all
bro.
the natural fears come from, realistically, is from memory, from DNA. I mean, that's why you get that uncanny valley feeling, which, again, what looked close to people that we were afraid of, that would become an inherited fear. When you see a dark shadow, we instantly know to duck. You know, people are instantly afraid of the dark, snakes, spiders, and it's all memory stored from previous generations. And I mean, that's one thing to think about is the whole concept of past life regression a resurrection, I guess, of like consciousness that, you know, they always say energy can't be created nor destroyed. So assumably it's going to put itself somewhere else or replace itself somewhere else. So, I mean, looking at it from a scientific standpoint, I mean, it might make sense that if there is this like soul energy or whatever the consciousness is that we're clearly never going to understand until we're on that other side, you know, assumably it would go into somewhere else. It would transfer into something else, just like how energy does, you know, like you hit something with something else and that energy transfers into that other thing. And I mean, that's one way of looking at it. But on the other side too, I mean, there's definitely these weird experiences where like kids will say, oh, in a past life, I was, you know, a jet pilot or whatever.
Facts.
And my name on my plane was this, and I crashed in this ocean. And then the parents will start looking it up and they'll find the exact name of the person, the exact ocean, all this kind of stuff. And it's like
the kid with the scar?
That kid know that? I mean, that one maybe has a little bit maybe to do with that whole consciousness recycle, but the stuff that dates back even farther along, I mean, maybe you're just more in touch with those natural genetic memories and it's just a genetic memory than you actually physically remembering it. But I mean, either way, I mean, I feel like there is some type of scientific explanation to why people have these experiences, depending on which avenue you want to try to look at. I think it may not even necessarily be one, but honestly, like a compilation of both of those, depending on the person and the experiences that they're talking about.
This is why every single time conspiracy theory, I know a lot of people here and there they're gonna get pissed right now when they tell me, how come you're a conspiracy theorist, a podcaster, you're not a flat earther? I'm like, bro, it's just look, bro, it's not that I'm not a flat earther, it's just I'm not a glober either. I'm a realmer guy. I think everything's electricity, everything's energy. I think you create what you want it to be, which puts me to my next question. Did you ever get to manifest things? Have you ever tried focusing, channeling that energy?
I have not, but on the other side, I feel like there's always been this constant flow in my life where like everything ends up turning out how it's supposed to. Like one bad event will start a chain of events that ends up leading into something good eventually. So maybe it's just a matter of perspective, or on the other side, maybe it is something that's manifesting. But I mean, there's even scientific backing to that where people are always like, I'm sick, I'm sick, I'm sick. Like their brain starts believing it and then their immune system starts lowering and in turn they manifest themselves being sick. And the same goes even with like the whole placebo effect that, you know, you'll see these illnesses that'll heal up even though they're completely giving them a placebo. And it was that the whole time they thought and they believed that that thing was going to do something. And in turn, it
placebo,
ended up doing
nocebo.
something.
Yep.
So it ends up becoming this whole idea that's almost like the split, what is that called? The split something experiment,
The
where
slit, the two slit
double
experiment.
slit experiment. Yeah, that's it. Where things react differently if you're consciously aware of
Observing
them
it.
and
Air
observing them.
quotations. Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, I mean that I
You
feel
know
like the
they
same can be said for the human body, realistically.
you know they just redid it. They redid it. You'll win a Nobel Prize, bro, if you freaking break this code, bro. They redid it. And this time they did it. Wait, let me remember this. Was it with light? It was with light. No, it was this is why you cannot listen to light. So they came down and they redid it. I guess it gave a third little shape. A third. If anybody doesn't know about what we're talking about, the two slit experiment, look it up, guys. It's gonna blow your freaking brain. One of the reasons why I started podcasting, and why I'm a realmer. I'm a dimensions guy. They said that what we are physically, I think this is why I think time is probably the biggest lie known to man, not space. Time is more relevant than space, I think. But they said finally that everything so the past, present, and future are happening in one time, right? As we're speaking right now, everything's happening in different dimensions, in different frequencies, and this is why we cannot listen light. Something likelihood is something that we will never fathom to experience because our laws of gravity in our three-dimensional world. So they said that our brains are technically slowing down matter. We're slowing down matter through our eyes, and then our brains is giving us the experience of life. But if we weren't slowing it down in our brain, we would age faster. We would move with matter in that right vibration. The only thing that's holding us back is ourselves, like looking at ourselves in a mirror. It goes back in a full loop, but it's freaking crazy. Before I lose my train of thought, you said two-slit experiment, and you said something about manifestation, and then weaponizing it. You said placebo nocebo, which I think it has also is weaponized. I'm a conspiracy theorist at heart, and I think that not only COVID-19, but all the fucking bullshits that the people have, propaganda, things that people have bombarding us with on a daily basis through our eyes, through all our five senses. I think that they're also weaponizing our manifestation powers, our powers to create,
That's where
and
you
our
get
powers.
into the occult stuff because you start
Uh-huh.
putting all these like perfectly placed things in movies. There's a name for that. I'm brain farting on it right now.
Predictive programming.
Yes, predictive programming. Yes. So in turn, I mean, that's all part of the occult magic concept. You tell people what's coming, and then they subconsciously start thinking about it. So in turn, they start creating these things and manifesting these things.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Like Stockholm syndrome. You fall in love with your kidnapper, and you just manifest the kidnapping. You just keep getting kidnapped and love it.
I got a couple things that I want to pop in here with because you made a couple comments to it, and I wanted to kind of connect in with it a bit. So the whole flat Earth thing. When everybody asks me this question, I'm definitely one of those people that kind of believes in like a biological simulation. So my thing, and you mentioned a little bit earlier in the show with the whole like rendering concept, is that maybe both people are right at the same time. That when people are usually looking at the flat Earth stuff, they usually kind of dive back into like biblical concepts. And what if at that time the map itself was a square, but as the map started expanding, it started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and started creating a globe. And then past that, everybody starts getting into the whole concept about the map being even bigger than that. Now, maybe it's again because we're starting to expand into these areas. So now these areas are actually being rendered. And if we're living in a biological simulation, like nothing exists till you've actually physically been there, which could also kind of double in with this whole like double slit experiment that things react differently when they're actually observed.
Being observed.
And then to connect to the other thing you were kind of saying about all time simultaneously happening at once. I don't know if you've ever heard the whole theory about like people basically not being able to see certain colors at certain times. Have you heard this before?
Absolutely. Yeah.
So theoretically, what if all of these different things are within different light spectrums, and whatever light spectrum you're in, you aren't aware of that color. And it's a matter of trying to get to that same light frequency mixed with that sound frequency would be the key to being able to unlock seeing these different periods in time. And there probably is a color that we aren't aware that we see because our entire spectrum exists within this color, but maybe people in the future will start looking over our text and there'll be another color that they use, kind of like how we kind of dive into the past and there's these other colors
like
that
3D printing it.
And it's a matter of like, as time goes in this continuous loop, or wherever the concept of time might actually be, like there's different colors that are associated with different periods in time. Yeah. So you have to like get into that light spectrum in order to see it. And connecting in with something else a little weird for it. I don't remember exactly what this priest's name was. crap, I don't remember what the name of the machine was, but he was basically saying that he would take these certain colors and he would claim that he'd be able to see different periods in time. And he was like taking these like really, really weird pictures of like thing of something he claimed was Jesus and these like different periods in time. If you look it up,
that's
you can
huge.
probably find it. But I mean, it kind of connects in with that possible theory that maybe other times exist within different light spectrums, and that's why certain colors aren't observed at certain times. And we're just looking at it again from our perspective. And we can't see that all time is simultaneously happening at once.
Light is a form of vibration. Look it up. This is not a lie. Hashtag look it up, guys. In fact, what you said is funny because in Vietnam, when we were at war, there was a story of the Sinian dye. So, but when they were going into night vision, because when they were testing new technology, they were going into night vision using different shades of red. They would see demons and other fucking cryptids, and they were fighting things in the trees. So instead, what they did is they went with the color that we see the most shades of, green, which is now why night vision is in green. Trip the fuck out. See what I'm saying? So what you're saying has connections, dude. Oh shit, look at that. Good stuff, man.
Right, and those people that supposedly take those pictures where they can see like into other dimensions, all those like weird DMT type entity pictures, they're using different colors of filters in order to do that. And they're like projecting it off of like the top of water. So again, kind of playing into the whole idea about different things existing in different spectrums and this whole like DMT realm that we're talking about. Maybe this is like the future of what consciousness ends up evolving into, where we evolve past a physical form. And I mean, this concept, I mean, could even have been trickle fed for years, because you dive into some of the old Star Trek episodes and it's weird how much stuff relates into this. And if you dive into Star Trek, there's a lot of whole like conspiracies with this stuff. Like this guy was like Solar Warden and all this.
I'm a Star Wars head. How dare you speak about Star Trek on this show?
Star Trek, though, fantastic, man. Especially with like the route that Disney's going with Star Wars. It's like, man, you got to go back to the Star Trek. But if you like diving into these weird philosophical concepts, like Star Trek is one of those things that it's like you don't appreciate it as a kid, but when you get older and you start diving into this stuff and these like sci-fi mind-bending concepts, then you start getting into Star Trek. And I'm not going to say that I don't love the original Star Wars and stuff, don't get me wrong, but like Star Trek's kind of where I've evolved to. But it's a regular concept within that show that they talk about these beings that they're not like non-physical and they exist within like a different realm. And like if a human sees them, like they'll end up going crazy, and like they have all these like other weird concepts that get involved with these things, and they get into these like really deep philosophical concepts about never being able to be fully attached to a person because you're, you know, confined to a physical form. But in turn, you guys get the feelings of sensation, but we get the feelings of being like truly connected with another. Like, bro, it gets fucking deep and weird if you start watching that shit.
You think they were telling you about these other dimensional beings in different frequencies because it's nonfiction? Do you actually think that?
They're talking about almost how every single species that has evolved into that point was at physical form at one point, and then they evolved past the physical form. And this is every single species that they talk about in Star Trek is exactly like that, where they had a physical form at one point. So again, predictive programming, they're like laying these things down that are like, this is the future. This is what species are going to turn into, because I feel like the first step is telepathy. That's the first way that you're able to connect with somebody past this like physical form. And then the step beyond that would be to shed the physical form and completely be able to communicate through telepathy, consciousness. And then at that point, I mean, you can shift and move reality. And that's weirdly enough, another concept that they bring in with these things is that they can like materialize objects, and they learn how to like create things with assumably like vibration. And then that gets into like the whole concept with the DMT realm.
That's ancient. That's ancient, right? Ancient tools, vibrational, right? Vibration tool, like they would use frequencies to elevate rocks, etc. Right? Kind of like ancient marvels. Let me ask you something. You said you said about something about creatures evolving, and then we're talking about the colors. What color spectrum does a snake see in? What is it? Ultraviolet? It's heat
they
sensor?
see like basically like thermal vision.
Thermal vision. Okay, so check this out. Let's hypothetically say a snake is a snake, and it uses its primal cortex of its brain and lives very primal. It only worries about breathing, eating, shedding, reproducing. Am I wrong? Right? Very basic lifestyle. Their brains haven't evolved to the next frequency. And you said, let's hypothetically say we see all the colors that we see, but we cannot see thermal because we elevated the next checkpoint in life where we get to see the next spectrum of colors and the next dimensions of colors, and so forth and so forth. Our next evolution state will probably be telepathy, and then creating matter with vibrational frequencies, right? So if let's say, could there be? I guess my question would be: would there be a sense, maybe not in the evolution theory, but would there be a point in time where the humans, our bipedal structure was so primal that we would be able to see in that color spectrum? Do
I
you
feel like
think
it's
so?
definitely a possibility. I mean, just
Mhm.
another weird thing to think about. I mean, we think of ourselves as being possibly the most like advanced species on the planet, but I mean, we never put ourselves in the perspective necessarily of like other animals because, you get into like the mantis strip, and this is one thing I like to bring up all the time. This thing has the most complicated eyes that exist on the planet. It can see four colors. I believe it's four colors that humans can't even see or perceive. So it's like we're looking at ourselves as we're the most advanced things on the planet, but maybe that isn't necessarily the case because you look into all the stuff in the ocean and they've evolved for like years and years and years beyond humans. So, I mean, who knows what these things could potentially be capable of? Maybe they're more simplified animals because there's just not a need to be an overcomplicated animal. But on the other side, I mean, there could be fish and different things that are able to communicate through like telepathy, and we'd never necessarily be aware of it because, we're not thinking in the same state of consciousness as these things are possibly thinking. And I mean, even within like the weird stuff in the ocean, like how often do we end up finding like, different animals that are like playing with other animals? Like, I feel like it's partially like a game that these things in the ocean are probably a lot more mentally evolved than we actually give them credit for. I mean, even getting into whales, like there's a lot of
Dolphins.
people that make
Oh yeah.
claims that these things have a full language and they're like way more intelligent than we ever give them credit for. I mean, like,
Mhm.
but again, unless you're on that thought process, like you're never going to look at them that way because, we think of
Yeah.
ourselves as being the most advanced. Like we're one of the stupidest things on the planet if you break it down in a different facet because we're the only
Yeah.
ones that you couldn't take any of us and throw us out in the wild and have us survive. Like any animal, you could throw them out in the wild. They figure out how to make everything work for them when they're out there. Like
Yeah. We
there's no thought
terraform
process
everything.
to it.
Hmm.
We think of,
Hmm.
we think of intelligence as being able to read, being able to write, all of this kind of stuff, but there's no reason for that to necessarily evolve if there's no need for it. Like if you're
Hmm.
surviving out in the woods, you're doing everything that you could possibly do. Like, doesn't mean that you're not just as smart or just as conscious as a human. It's just that you didn't need to put that knowledge in that one place. And not everything wants to evolve to a point of like space travel. Some things are way more intelligent than we are, and they end up evolving on a spiritual level, and they never end up needing to get to that point. And they exist in this like more natural realm where they end up getting into like the whole portal shifting, all that kind of shit. And then there you go, you're getting down the road to getting into like the quantum Bigfoot concept.
I read an article. I've mentioned this before on a couple of shows where I was reading about a monk that went into hibernation for 30 days and he lived for 30 days off one almond. He got
One
all
element.
the energy of the entire universe in one almond, and he was spiritually in tune so that his body would not take up all that energy and just live off nothing but the almond and his spiritual essence. That is huge. That is big, bro. Exactly what you just said right now, being spiritually in tune and on that frequency, that process. Crazy
Need
stuff,
to
man.
evolve into the whole standpoint because I mean the reason that we've evolved into it is because we're trying to make up for these that we wish we had that we don't learn a way to develop, and there's no need to develop machinery if you know how to move brick foundation. Like it's just like a way of looking at it. Like you think of these, but realistically, tune with nature and know how to use it wrong, and they manipulate stuff as much as we do to get it to function, if not an easier function we're trying to get it to do. And how hard is it to understand and actually or to be to naturally develop the ability telepathy versus going through a chain of creating these different machines to try to get to a point where telepathy. Like if you have to do that and you were in tune with you were telepathic and you could just connect without having to create the machinery, like you're taking so many extra steps out. Like there's no need to overcomplicate it. Like simplicity is bliss.
Have you ever had a situation with telepathy?
I have not personally, but I mean, it would definitely be cool. I think it's one of those things that it's be the next step that we're going to need to do to evolve as a species because it seems like it's the next step with almost any extraterrestrial or like advanced being that we talk about is they always seem to have this ability. And this is just this weird philosophical concept that I've been kind of diving into lately. I've been doing a lot of reading in some of these like utopian type books. Like I've been reread like 1984 Anthem, just all these different books like that. But this whole concept of I don't think that there's ever going to be a way to govern people properly where there's not going to be an issue where it ends up becoming corrupt and then starting itself because every single with the best in one generation in, two generations, start manipulating that idea paradigm on what they want. And then once that happens years down the line, it's completely taken away from what the original concept was. And then that's when revolution starts up. And then revolution starts up. They're that new chain, new idea, next generation down. And the same process keeps happening over and over and over again. And I feel like the reason for that is because there's always going to be corruption in the system because we can't actually have honest, open communication with people. So I feel like the only theoretically possible way that we could ever get to a point where we could have this utopian society that everybody talks about, and how we could actually get to a point where we could have like a functioning government system that helps out and actually does what everybody needs it and wants it to do. Because realistically, it's like everybody wants to be like, no government, the government lies, whatever. But it's like you need some type of structure for the average person, because not everybody thinks on a deep level. Some people just like things to be simplified for themselves. So it's one of those things that it's like you're always going to need it, because without it, you're just going to have absolute chaos, because the people that are stronger than the rest are just going to end up taking everything else back over again. And then the recycle is just going to reset, as long as there's always going to be those people that want to be the step higher than everybody else. But if we are able to telepathically communicate, where, you could go into like, to have a debate with somebody, and not only would you be able to understand their perspective on their side and why they're fighting for their side, because you could feel their emotions, feel their feelings, know everything that they're actually understanding on a biological level, other than just you being angry, not wanting to hear anything that they say while they're trying to spout their opinion. I feel like that's the only way you could get to a deep level of understanding where you feel that person's honest emotions. So the only theoretical way we could ever potentially get to a utopian society without this reoccurring revolution concept. And again, revolution means in a circle. It's a continuous cycle. It's not going to start anything new. It's not whatever. The only way we'll ever be able to get there is if we're able to telepathically communicate with each other, and we can actually weed out the people that are the corrupt ones that end up destroying the system a couple generations down the line.
Bold selflessness. Yo, I love the way you put that out there. And I'm going to give the people a cliffhanger to go back to your show and check out the last portion of your experience that we didn't come back to, because we're going to cut it off here. But check this out. The conversation with you went off the wall, bro. We freaking murdered it. You have a beautiful mind. I love your opinions. I love the way you come at things. I love that you also experience things, that we share that also. And I love the fact that you said something about telepathy, because I've said this only one time, very long time ago on the show. And I said, my ex and I'm still friends with her. We're still amicable. And I spent 7 years of my life with her, and it got to a point that I would look at her and I would make like a nudge with my face, and we had a sentence conversation. She knew exactly my thought process. So it wasn't, people could call it telepathy. If you want to reach, you could call it telepathy. But I don't call it telepathy. I just call it like we were biologically and spiritually almost synchronized, where I know what she was feeling. I felt it. We had a communication. I would tell her something in like a sentence, and she would bust out laughing. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, did you hear me? Yeah, like I heard you. And I was like, oh shit, I know what you were thinking, babe, or whatever at that time, right? And it's different types of love. You love people at different frequencies. Obviously, the love of my life is here. I have my daughters with me. That's a whole different thing. I'm not trying to say I still love this person. I'm saying telepathy, what you said, it would be the next checkpoint, save game. Let's try to kill the next boss. Telepathy would be that marker that sets humans on to the next revolution. That's huge.
And hopefully it wouldn't be a revolution anymore at that point, because that'd be the first point where we'd actually start breaking through and not just get stuck in this constant continuous cycle, which maybe that's why they're trying to keep the vibrations down of everybody and keep everybody in these dark places all the times, because they know that. And once we get to a point with that, we'll be able to see through these elites. Anything that an elite says, any politician you say, you'll be able to actually see and understand exactly how they're feeling. So essentially at that point, politicians wouldn't be able to lie anymore, which is, again, possibly why all these elites are trying to keep us out of that spiritual elevation concept and actually growing to a new point of evolution.
And with that,
also, just as a quick cliffhanger, for anybody that wants to come back and check out the experiences, because I'm sure you'll probably want to have me on to finish them, just to give a little tiny bit of a teaser, in the whole astral projection realm, I had an experience where I had seen my kid before he was born. I had an experience where I was dimension hopping, and I saw this creature that I believe could have theoretically been a Wendigo, and I can get into why I believe that on the next episode, and why I hadn't actually
talked about that. What is it? What is that? What is that? What is that?
A Wendigo?
The creature. Yeah, what is it?
Yeah, that's well, I'll save that for the next episode because I have like a full explanation of this stuff. But yeah, I don't want to give any of it away until we actually get into the episode. Because once I start that can of worms, once I open that can of worms, man, I'm just gonna keep rolling with it. So we'll just won't unpack that one yet.
Okay.
If anybody knows, they know. But if not, they'll just have to come back for the next episode and figure out what a Wendigo is.
And if you have any inquiries about your reality, make sure you check out Shayn Jones. Let them know where they can find you one more time.
Try to make it quick and easy. I keep everything under Open Minds Media. So if you guys want to check out Inquiries of Our Reality with Shayn Jones, Bizarre Encounters with Shane and Oren, you guys can go and check out the Open Minds Media link tree, and it'll give you connected to all of that on top of the YouTube page, the Patreon, and the TikTok, of course. And that link is linktr.ee/open_minds_media. Or if you guys go and look up Inquiries of Our Reality podcast on Facebook, Instagram, any of that kind of stuff, or Bizarre Encounters on Facebook or Instagram, you'll end up finding me. Just look for the one that says Shane somewhere involved in the name, and that's spelled SHAYN. But you'll find me. Just look up Inquiries of Our Reality, and you'll be able to find everything else.
I freaking love it. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure you check them out. Do not forget to drop a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, because that allows other people to enjoy the show as much as I enjoy making it. Peace out, bro. What? You have an amazing brain, bro.
Paranoid Radio.